Good evening and welcome to November 21st, 2017 City Clawson Council meeting. This meeting is now called to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for the invocation.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let us pray. Lord, we are meeting here today to conduct matters of business, guide our hearts and our minds in the spirit of fairness, right thoughts, and speech. Impart your supreme wisdom upon our activities so that our affairs may reach a successful conclusion. Thank you for being our source of guidance today. Put your light upon our ideas, our discussions, and our deliberations. Enable us to speak our truths clearly and help us to listen to each other. Please protect our military and keep those safe. And let us additionally help others in need during this holiday season. Amen.
Amen.
Roll call, please.
Mayor Woolley,
Here.
Councilmember Ayers,
Here.
Councilmember Milan,
Here.
Councilmember Moffett,
Here.
Councilmember Albrecht.
Here.
The first thing on the agenda is consideration of approving the following consent agenda. What's on the agenda item is the minutes of our City Council organizational meeting held last Monday, and the purchase of one GMC pickup vehicle for the DPW lot. I see that Mr. Ballard's here to answer questions or discuss the purchase. Come up.
Good evening, Council. Congratulations on the elections. And I'm here to answer any questions about the 2018 purchase of a GMC pickup.
Mark, I did have one question in regard to the motor equipment fund that the additional $1,300 is coming out of. It's mentioned in
Yeah,
reference to Doug's.
it would be operating supplies, and what we'll do is amend, when we do the December budget amendments, we would amend that $1,300 from that line item to capital, because it will go in the capital, the full purchase price. But we usually amend a line item if we can within the budget. So operating supplies, or even we'll look at repairs as well, because getting new vehicles usually lowers repairs and maintenance. So one of those two line items will be requested for amendment, probably the first meeting of February when we do December budget amendments.
I probably should have mentioned that this purchase is for a 3,500 pickup vehicle that the council had approved $40,000, and it turns out that the best option for the city was going to be $41,313.
Correct. The $40,000 was for a 2500 series pickup. Speaking with the mechanics to upgrade the suspension. This truck takes a lot of abuse, during the winter months. It is one of our primary trucks for plowing city buildings. So we went with an upgrade on the suspension.
This is diesel, right?
No, it's not diesel. No.
Okay.
And this is to replace a vehicle that we're taking out of circulation?
Correct. It's to replace a 2005. Yes.
Thank you.
Got our money's worth out of that one, right?
Oh, you bet. Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thanks.
You too.
Madam Mayor, I move the consent agenda be approved as listed.
Support.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Ayers,
Yes.
Councilmember Milan,
Yes.
Councilmember Moffett,
Yes.
Councilmember Albrecht,
Yes.
Mayor Woolley.
Yes. And the motion passes. The next item on the agenda is a presentation by our Historical Museum Director, Melody Nichols. And it's almost your 10-year anniversary next month, I believe. December
Actually,
2007?
Yes, when Dolores retired, that's correct. Yes. So, yeah, thank you. And I'll be brief. I just want to let everyone know that with the tree lighting that I'm sure you're going to mention happening next Wednesday, the museum will be having our annual open house. And as usual, we'll have some music. We have a lot of holiday decorations up. We've got a really wonderful Christmas card display from 1920s and early 30s that will be fun to look at. And we'll have some cookies and treats for the first few people that show up. And it'll be one of your last chances to see our general store exhibit. That exhibit will be coming down after that, and we'll be preparing that room for a brand new exciting exhibit that will open in February. So if you've been saying, I want to come see that general store exhibit, this will be your time to do it. We'll be there from 6:30 until about 8. So after you see Santa and see the trees and sing some carols, come on over and visit us.
And the museum is closed in the month of January, if I remember correctly.
are closed
as
in
we
January, yes.
Clean and reorganize, so
That's
people
right.
need to get over there
Yeah.
for the next 6 weeks.
That's right.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
And next, we have a presentation from Lisa Ball, who's an intern here in town, to speak to us about a youth advisory council.
Yay, it's my turn. Uh, Well, good evening, council members. As most of you know, I have been interning with the city since July of this year. I was recruited by Mark Pollock, our city manager, and Michael Smith, our city clerk, to help with boosting the city's social media presence. So to help, I've created a number of videos and edited them, many hours of that, advocating for the city's events, happenings, and services. The process of making these videos gave me the opportunity to meet with city officials, residents, business owners, and most importantly, members of nonprofits of the organizations that are functioning in our city. And during that process, I discovered a problem, and that problem being the seemingly low interest in volunteerism from the youth in our community. So being that I am a social worker in training, I couldn't help but want to try and find a solution to that problem. So I started doing some research, and I found that a number of neighboring cities and cities across the U.S. have youth advisory councils. So in addition to my research, I went a step further, and I talked to the social worker over at our middle school. I've talked to a number of the presidents at some of our youth organizations, and I've also spoke to several of our high school students. And because of all of that, I feel very strongly that a youth advisory council is something that we should do in our city. And that brings me to why I'm here presenting to you tonight. I'm going to tell you how what a youth advisory council is, how it works in other cities, and how I think it could work in our city. Let me get my little button. Hopefully I click this correctly. So what is a youth advisory council? A youth advisory council is a body of young people providing counsel and support to organizations and governing bodies to create and participate in a variety of projects and community initiatives. Youth councils allow organizations to form a stronger connection with the community and its youth. Organizations invest in the future of youth by giving them a voice. Why a youth council? Increases volunteerism, creates community leaders, generates self-confidence, and delivers opportunities to our youth. Now this is just a graph showing you that clearly teens do volunteer. Volunteering in adolescence is associated with positive outcomes during the teen years as well through the adult years. Teens who volunteer on their own are less likely to engage in illegal behavior throughout their life. Volunteering as a teen leads to continued volunteering as adults, and that's exactly what we want. We want people to volunteer when they're young and to keep doing it as they age. And again, I mean, I'm really showing you these numbers because we just need to do something to get our teens enthusiastic about volunteering, and I think a youth advisory council is a way to do that. It creates community leaders. Our youth, they are a resource. Welcoming our youth to take part in the decision-making process of community development enables city officials to utilize our youth as a resource and not just mere recipients of services. They become role models. Members of a youth advisory council become role models to their peers. Leaders. Members are recognized as leaders in the community and respected by their peers as the go-to group to address their community needs, because this is really all about peer-to-peer engagement. It generates self-confidence. It gives our youth a voice. Youth Advisory Council provides our youth the platform necessary to form a collective voice representing the issues that matter to them most. A positive sense of self. A number of studies reveal that youth who have a positive self-perceptions are more likely to succeed academically, socially, and physically. A sense of readiness for college, work, and life. Giving our youth the opportunity to take on leadership positions in our community gives our youth a sense of readiness for college, work, and life. And really, I think with regard to college, I mean, somebody that becomes a member of a youth advisory council, I just think it would be really tremendous for them to be able to give an admissions advisor a letter of recommendation from a council member or any number of city officials. I think that'd be really unique. It delivers opportunities to our youth. It gives them the opportunity to engage their local government. Youth Advisory Council permits our youth to work closely with city officials and the community to problem solve on the issues affecting them the most. Scholarships. Opportunities to receive scholarships through M-Parks, which the City of Clawson, we are a member of the Michigan Recreation and Parks Association, and they have a youth symposium every year where members of cities that have youth advisory councils, they're awarded scholarships and also recognized in their community. And some neat facts about the youth symposium. It actually just happened this past weekend. And this year's event took place at Eastern Michigan University, and it's actually organized by the youth advisory council members across Michigan that are participating in it. And this year they chose one topic which I thought was neat, was about eating on a healthy budget, which I was really surprised about that, but it was great. And last week I did have the opportunity to visit the teen council in Huntington Woods, and I watched their meeting, and it was really something spectacular. I mean, the kids, they run the meeting. They're sitting up like you are, and I just was really, really impressed with them. And the one girl that, I forget her title on their council, but she was awarded the scholarship this year. She received it this weekend, so I thought that was great. And these were not connected to online, but I did have some neat little montage of pictures to show you, but you can look at that another time. And then I have a number of examples of what other youth advisory councils are doing in our neighboring cities. And really, this is just to kind of show you what I think, like some of the things that we would do here as well. In Rochester Hills, some of the youth council responsibilities, they participate in a technical review committee, which that has a lot to do with the social media, and our kids, they know more than us. They attend city council meetings when they're assigned, and they serve as the youth ambassadors for the city of Rochester Hills. Some of the projects they are working on, promotional videos, which that would be awesome if I could get some kids to help me. They also host youth summits, and they host an annual 5K run where they raise money for various charities. And this last year, they raised $8,000, and they gave that to the Assistance League of Southeast Michigan, and I thought that was a pretty impressive amount. And they also participate in their yearly parades. And I know that our big parade is the 4th of July, and that would be really neat if we could have a youth advisory council help us out with that. Now, the Farmington Hills Mayor Youth Council, I really, really like what they're doing. And it's really something, I would really like to model what they do for the kids there. And actually, their youth advisory council, it's been adopted into their charter. Youth civic training. They have hands-on experience in local government. They develop the youth programs in their city, and they serve on city boards and commissions. Some of the projects they're working on, Eco House, which is creating an environmentally sustainable home. They have a mayor youth council talk show. They do some reverse mentoring with the teens to the seniors in the community. And they have a big ice arena, of course, in that city, and they do Friday night parties, just a fun thing. The Saline Youth Council, they do a lot of mentoring with the lower grade kids, 4th through 6th graders. They host a number of town hall meetings, and some of their projects, they volunteer at Saline Parks and Rec. They work closely with their Main Street, which would be cool if we could have a youth advisory council work with our downtown on some events. And they sponsor annual Citizens of the Year award, and they also participate in a holiday parade. The Canton Youth Advisory Council, they have their ongoing youth participation is, they actually sponsor educational speakers, and that's something I would really like to do. Their last speaker that they had, he had a talk on bullying at their Parks and Rec Center. They volunteer throughout the community, and they host events at their teen and youth center. And I like their little acronym for their youth center. It's called the Block Building Leaders Out of Canton Kids. And they host a number of leadership programs, and it's really great. And I actually attended the meeting for the Parks and Rec for their teen committees back in October, and I met with the youth coordinator, and she actually is a former Youth Advisory Council member, and she now works for the city. So, I mean, that was really neat, and she was just a wonderful person. Now, I'm going to kind of touch on some of the issues that we do have in Clawson that I would really think that we need help from our teen community on. One issue concerning Clawson is that the city of Clawson does not offer an after-school program for our teen age group. I work at Hunter Community Center, and only thing we mostly offer are programs for our senior community. Once 3 o'clock hits there, I mean, the seniors are out, and it's an opportunity for our teens to come down there and maybe create something for themselves. And I think our teens need to take a leading role on creating those programs. Because I know we've had issues in the past where, we do things and it just isn't working out, but I don't think we're using our teen community as a resource, like I said. Some of the organizations that are helping out, recently the Methodist Church, they started a youth center. And that is a new free program. They had 2 open houses last week. They have another one coming up on November 28th, which is a Tuesday. And I've met with Ben Walker over there, and he created this program because he recognized that there is a problem in the community. And he is a former high school principal, so there was really a lot of thought put into this. And he got in touch with some school administrators, and he started to conduct some focus groups in the middle school. And one of the 7th graders spoke of endless walking downtown, being asked to leave restaurants, and also of being bullied by older students and having to find refuge behind a dumpster. And, I mean, this is happening in City Hall's backyard. I mean, that's how close we are to the schools, and it was just very heartbreaking to hear that story. And I think it's fantastic that the church wants to pitch in and do something. But the only days that they can do something, it's a free program. They can only do it on Tuesdays and Fridays from 3 to 6. So, I mean, school is 5 days a week, so we need something else going on. And I met with the owners of Unleashed Gym, and I was impressed with what they're offering because they are a private business. And they're offering a new free program for the middle school students, Monday through Friday from 3 to 4, to come in and work out in their gym and, just kind of hang out. And the guys are young and cool, and I hope that some of our middle schoolers have been attending. I haven't touched base with them again to see how that program's going. And then, of course, we have our Clawson Youth Assistants and the Clawson Community Coalition, and they sponsor special events throughout the year for youth in the community, and everything's free, so I wanted to mention them as well. So now I'm going to touch on how to form a youth advisory council in our city. Of course, the kids, we have to nominate the leaders. We have to provide the platform, we have to provide some type of training, and we need to respect their input. On nominating the leaders, I think members of a youth advisory council, they should be in attendance at our public schools and also a youth resident. And I would really like for them to shadow our council members, so there would be 5 of them. And then if we could organize some kind of subcommittees from that, I think that would be great. We already do have teen clubs that have leaders in their group. We have the Optimist Club, we have the National Honor Society, we have Student Council, we have the Interact Club, and we have AP students. And then other students would be picked by or nominated by their social workers and teachers. And really, a youth advisory council can kind of, it's going to serve as a way to bring all these groups together, to work together. And then, of course, the city of Clawson has to provide the platform. I think it'd be great to have them meeting twice a month in chambers like you do. And then I know that the Huntington Woods, they actually have one meeting, they meet in chambers, or not, they don't have a chambers that they meet in, but we would meet in chambers. And then like maybe there would be a fun meeting down at Hunter or something like that. And then we need to invest in creating a permanent community space for our teens. Of course, we have Hunter Community Center. That's the space that we have right now. And we need something for our teen and tweens. And we do have a room down at Hunter. It's called the Senior Game Room. I don't know how familiar any of you are with it, but it's basically used as a storage room for the most part. And nobody goes in there because it's very cluttered, and Hunter doesn't have a lot of storage, so something does need to be done about that. And I've had talks with, of course, Kathy Leanhouse, our Parks and Rec director. She's seen my presentation, and I know she's trying to think of working on something to do. And those were just some pictures again. That was of Hunter, but we can't see them all. And this is actually just an image of the Canton space for youth. I mean, it really doesn't take much. Clean up the carpet, paint the walls, put some furniture there in there. So, and I just really thought that their space looked really cool, so I wanted to throw that in there. And then training the Clawson Youth Advisory Council. Our city council members, I'm here because I would need you to participate in some way to help them. Our city clerk, I would think would be great if he could, swear them in. It'd be fun for them. Our Parks and Rec, a youth advisory council, it is a program that falls under Parks and Rec in other cities. That's what I keep seeing. So, of course, that department would have to help in some way. And then city interns, kind of talking to myself, I would play a role. And then I would love to have other governmental guest speakers come in and speak to them, maybe like on the state level too. And then our teens, they are the experts on their community, not us. Our teens will be the ones organizing, leading, and creating the programs that they feel will meet the needs of the youth in our community. Of course, an adult coordinator will be necessary to support these teens in various ways, but that person will not be leading them. And we need to acknowledge the youth of our community as partners in solving community problems. We must come together with our youth to improve our community for residents of all age groups. And then we need to ensure, this, that CEAC, the CEAC program is a success by supporting and recognizing them as the leaders of tomorrow. By doing so, when it comes time to pass that baton of power, we will feel confident. We will have the confidence of knowing that they are fully prepared to take over. And that is my presentation. But when I talk to these students over at the high school, I really just got a sense that, they're seeking of something of their own design. I really feel that a youth advisory council will permit them to do that. So I'm here asking for your approval because I would really like to start working on this program. And if you have any questions, go ahead. We'll try to answer them.
Have you approached the school on this?
I've talked to them. The teachers are really excited about it. I did this presentation. Originally I approached the high school students. I got their feedback. I put this presentation together. I presented it to them, and they kept asking me questions as if like, we're already gonna put this in place. It's just like, not yet, but I hope so.
I had maybe just one or two questions
Okay.
initially. So I know that there are, and you had talked about selecting students from the public school. Would there be any opportunities for people, children, teenagers who are receiving other forms of schooling, homeschooling, private
Yeah, I mean,
school?
of course, I mean, and I've thought about that, because I know we have a parochial, I think we just have Guardian Angels here, and then we have Japhet School, which is a private school, and I know, of course, there are people in the city that do homeschool. I would love to include them as well, but I mean, the public schools, that was my first, point of contact.
Yeah.
Where, I mean, we have a number of people, and mostly too, because, I mean, the after-school problem is with our middle school students, so that's why I approached the public school system first.
Sure.
But I mean, I would like to find a way to include everybody.
Yeah, and I don't know. I mean, with the DDA, there are specific seats on the DDA. This,
Yeah.
this seat is for a business owner. This seat is for a resident. I don't know if we could do something like that, similar on a student council, where
Yeah.
one or two seats were reserved for somebody who wasn't in the public school.
Yeah, well, and really, it's, I mean, with the Youth Advisory Council, like any member that would be on a board, I mean, it's just really a learning experience for them. They would just basically go to that meeting, listen, and kind of report back to their council on what was talked about, and then if maybe they have some ideas or whatnot.
Yeah, because the after-school program issue is one that I would love to see addressed. But you brought up a wide range of opportunities for
Yeah.
the student council. So I'd love to see an opportunity for others with other forms of schooling.
Yeah, yeah, and like I said, that was just, the public schools, that's my go-to.
Yeah, absolutely.
Easy.
Yeah, I understand that.
Yeah.
And then is there? You talked about like the Michigan youth, and I don't know the correct term for it, but the Michigan kind of.
The youth symposium?
Yes.
Yes.
Do they provide kind of guidance or any kind of rules of order or anything like that for?
I really don't, like, once, like, say we have a youth advisory council in our city, I mean, we can pick as many of our members to attend that youth symposium as we want.
Okay.
And beyond that, it's mostly I'll just say it's the Parks and Rec person that's in charge of that program. They are coordinating with the other city Parks and Recs on where to really have the location, but the members that they select, they're the ones that get to like pick the topics. So, and then like, of course, the adults, they are the ones that really help to get that going for them.
And so my final question was about the youth coordinator. Is this an additional employee that the city would be looking to have on on our staff?
That would be up to you. I do work for Parks and Rec, so I would like to be that employee. So, I've worked really hard in this, and I have a small child of my own. I invested in this community, and I would really I think this would be just wonderful for all the kids in our community. So, but yeah.
Okay. I appreciate it.
This is a type of program that would have to grow. So
Oh, yes.
let's say you were ready to start something. What resources would you need immediately, and how would you target your beginning? Because I would think the first year or so would be kind of small, and then you would branch out.
Yeah, of course, you don't want to rush and make anything too big at first because you want it to work. When I talked about nominating the leaders, the people that would be nominating, I would really want the schools to do that because they know these kids. They know what their leadership skills are. Or like the presidents of like the Optimist Club, like they could nominate these kids. And then like our council would okay, we have this many kids. We're going to pick maybe just 5 this year. And then we're going to try to really work with them. And there would be a training process. So like say we said, okay, we're going to do this, but we would train them, I think, starting next year to where they would be ready to have their own council in the fall. So, because I would, I really would like to take baby steps with it to make sure we're doing it the right way.
So the Clawson schools are kind of small, and I know I see the same kids do the same. They're involved in everything, right?
know.
Your peak kids, and they're not any better than the other kids. They're just ones that are willing to go out there and try and do something. I kind of feel you should target kids that aren't active already and maybe find a way for them to go, because there are always those untapped kids. And if
Oh,
you
yeah.
talk to various teachers, they can tell you who the hidden leaders are, because this is something new and it could be exciting for them. Maybe you start a little bit, the people in the corner, as opposed to those 12 kids who are involved in everything, and it's really difficult for them to add one more thing to their
Yes.
list, except they might want to add it to their college apps. That's all I'm thinking if you're junior, senior.
Yeah, well, and actually, one of the teens in one of the classrooms I visited, that was a complaint they had. They're like, and they named them the preppies. They're the ones always getting picked for these types of things, and we're overlooked. And it's like, as long as your teacher nominates you, I'm not saying that you necessarily have to be a part of one of these clubs. That's just what we have in Clawson, so I wanted to mention that because, these are kids that already show leadership skills. And again, I want to include everybody. But it's like if their teacher, they don't have to be in these clubs. If their teacher feels like, yes, you can do this, encourages them, let me nominate you, then have them be on it. And it's a way to also make sure that this is a diverse community that would be representing everybody, all the kids in the city. So, yes, I know exactly what you're talking about, and one student did bring that up.
Do you have a project in mind as your
Well, my
beginning
project- What I came up with, and again, these kids may come together, they may say they want to work on something totally different. I'm presenting, some issues that we do have in Clawson. I would like them to create some kind of programming for the middle schoolers after school. That is an issue that we have here. We have Hunter Community Center where we could do things, and I would really like to see the teens down there. Because, it's a community center, and the only community that it's really representing is our seniors.
I am supportive of the idea. I really am. I'd like to get more. I'd like to get more details about the selection process, whether it's an application and we conduct interviews.
Well, and that's typically what other cities do.
Yeah.
But I just don't really like the idea of doing that because you guys don't know these kids. It's the teachers that know these kids.
Sure.
And then my thinking behind it is to have the teachers nominate them, or if they're part of a club or whatever it is, and then maybe that child just do like a short essay, and then that teacher or whoever, they would be also writing something as well and submitting it to you guys for a final selection.
Okay. Yeah, and not to keep beating the drum, but
Go ahead.
You talk about diversity and representing all the kids in Clawson,
Yep.
and not a lot of people necessarily know this. I was homeschooled for 9 years, so this is near and dear to my heart. I would really like to see maybe one seat kind of.
Well, it's hard to find the homeschoolers.
Sure it
I
is,
don't
yeah.
have a contact. It's like I
Yeah.
don't have an administrator to call and say, hey, homeschoolers come here. But our acting out kids, their
Yes.
community theater, they are homeschool
Yep.
kids, and I've worked with Madison. She's absolutely wonderful.
Yeah.
I know that they want to do more in the city, and she's actually in college now, so she
Right.
could be looked at as a future intern. But her brother is still in high school, and right there are some homeschool students that I know and I work with, and they're fantastic.
Yeah, they're very involved in our community, and maybe there aren't any homeschool kids who would be interested in this.
Yeah,
but,
you don't know.
It'd
Yeah.
be something I
Yeah.
think is worth exploring.
Yeah, and I would love to explore that, but like I said, it's just hard to find them.
Sure.
Well, they have to have a network, right? Don't homeschool
They do.
people generally have a great network.
Some
for
Some of
sharing.
them do. Like if you would have, through their churches. I know
Whatever.
that.
I know the YMCA has homeschool activities all the time, and so they're getting them from somewhere.
Yeah, and I think there's a MOPS group you could contact. I know there's the Detroit Homeschooling Network, but it doesn't necessarily mean that Clawson people would be
Yeah.
participating in that. But I do know of that association, and I've contacted them for various reasons.
And I don't
before.
want to take up too much of our
Yeah,
time
go-
here
yeah, go
talking
ahead.
about that. But so, if you want, maybe we can talk about that afterwards and come up
Yeah.
with a strategy to reach
Yes,
some of
definitely,
those people, see if
definitely.
they'd be interested.
Yeah, I would
But
love that.
I really like this idea. It's something I've thought about in the past and haven't
Yes.
done anything on. So I'm glad somebody is. I appreciate it. Yeah.
So you mentioned you would want them to live in Clawson, but our schools service a population of school choice kids, and a lot of them are the ones that need this service more than anyone because they are the ones that have no place to go after school. And,
Yes,
you know,
and
and
some of
not
those-
at their own fault. So if you could add representation from that group as well.
And some of those kids did speak up, and like I said, it really, a lot of these decisions would come down to the kids that are gonna participate in this. I mean, I'm giving you ideas here, but ultimately, I mean, they would be choosing what they wanna do, and I do know that we are an open school district, and it is why it would make sense to have these kids participate as well, but, you know, maybe they would participate as a subcommittee of something. Because like, some of the titles that the Huntington Woods group had, they had like a social media coordinator up on their board. And maybe that child wouldn't necessarily have to live in Clawson. But, I mean, I would like a fair amount of, you know, Clawson residents here, because they live here, and they know about their community. I mean, it's required that you guys be residents, so I just kind of was following that. But
I
yeah,
guess-
definitely, I mean, I would want some kind of subcommittees to represent those kids as well.
You know, I think there's representation for all sorts of the different groups, and so, like Matt, to carve out a seat for homeschooled kids.
Yeah.
To carve out a seat of our kids that attend Clawson schools outside, because they have a voice that needs to be represented, because there's a large portion of the children that come here to go to school that need some options and want their voices heard. So I think our youth community is made up of a lot of different people, and we just want to make sure that every one of those voices is heard. Just because they go to Clawson schools, I don't think that should be the end. You know,
Yeah,
the
yeah.
only reason that they isn't a seat for them. So I think we need to make sure that we're all inclusive and.
I would do, I mean, I know, I mean, more and more kids, they attend school online now.
Yeah.
I mean, I keep running into more of those kids. I find it very interesting. And I would love to do that and find them, to have them a part of this.
Well, thank you so much. It was very, very detailed and very helpful and very excited. Does anybody else have any questions? And what type of action item are you looking
Yeah.
for?
Well,
Because
really,
I don't know
I
that
mean-
we're prepared
No, I
necessarily
know,
to do that
I know, but
today.
just like really, I mean, for me to move forward and, you know, to do more, it's like I really kind of need that extra stamp of approval, like it's like continuing to gather more information for you, or should we like try to start finding the kids that we might want to have a part of this? I mean, it's like, because I'm ready to move on it.
Is this
I guess
worth
I'm
an
looking at, like,
additional?
My focus is almost to have your, a structure in place with the goals specifically. This is what I'd like to do in the next 6 months. This is
Okay.
what I'd like to do in the next year, and really focus on developing the program. I know it's run by the students in the community, but it still needs an adult focus.
Yes.
And so I think that
Yeah.
that needs to happen in some sort of more, you know, this is specifically what I need from council, so that we can have an action item on it.
That's a question I had too. So you talked about that you're currently an employee and you would want to add this to your responsibilities, but like who decides how your time is allocated and how your time is spent? And is there room within your current time that you're allotted to add this duty, and who gets to decide that? I think we need
Yeah.
to button that up as well.
Well, and that's where, I mean, we would have to bring, Mark and Kathy Leanhouse would probably have to have conversations on this to, you know. develop how
Allocation
you,
of the
like-
time and wages and
Yeah.
that sort of thing, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and like, because like these kids, I mean, if they raise money for their organization, that money would have to go somewhere so they can use it and things like that.
Is this worth having another workshop or meeting kind of away from a council meeting, maybe to get into some more of these details? I don't know.
Yeah,
Let me
sounds
know.
like a really good idea.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
maybe we can brainstorm and get it a little bit more focused, because I mean, there was just so much information, so many great, you know, a lot of great information, very
Yep.
exciting, but we just, as a start in a small community, we really need to focus it a little bit more, so.
That's fine. I
would
can do
think
that.
the initial project should be identified as well when you form the group and, or your committee, that the number one project is just something that you can introduce to them, and they take off with it and then build on it, as opposed to dragging them together and then figuring out what they want to do from there. And I know
Okay.
that's the ultimate goal, but I
Yes.
think a little more direction in the beginning would probably be helpful
Okay.
for them and, you know, just for the entity itself.
Sort of a straw man project plan of what it would look like and what everyone's responsibilities would be and what the resources allocated to it and some structure and those kinds of things.
Yep, I can do that.
You can do it.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for your time.
You're welcome.
Great job.
Thanks, Lee.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is urbane infill development. is here to do a presentation regarding a development on 11 Walper.
Hello.
Good evening.
Thank you for having us here tonight. We're here to talk about potential development we'd like to do. I'm from Urbane Apartments. We own and manage about 18 boutique apartment communities, 2 of which are in Clawson now. Our first property we bought was in Clawson on Maple. We have closed on the parcel in question, and we had approached the city about the zoning issues and if they thought it would be a good fit. And so we were told that we would go down the path of a PUD. And so we're here to really get some sort of feedback from the group, if they're supportive of this or not, because the PUD process is, I think Greg can talk about that a little bit more, but somewhat involved, and it's we would take on a fair amount of expense to do that, and we would hate to do that, and then you folks go, oh, no, that isn't something we want in Clawson. So.
Yeah, so just by way of introduction, they came to, the site is 11 Walper, and so it's the corner of Walper and South Main. And they came to Planning Commission in a similar fashion with an informal presentation with that picture, and there's a site plan that we have as well that you can see how the property lays out, and made a presentation to them, as he says, to make this use work in that location. The most likely technique would be a PUD. The site zone B1 right now, so it would not be a permitted use, obviously, in the local business district. The draft master plan contemplates a mixture of uses along South Main, so it would be consistent with that. One district that might be appropriate for that as well would be the new central mixed district that we created, but it was more cumbersome than using the PUD process, and so we've suggested that to them. Given that it would be a rezoning either way, council's obviously going to be involved. If it is a PUD, you'll have the, in fact, final say on the site plan as well. And so we thought it made sense, as he says, before they invested a lot in those plans, because with the PUD process, it's very front-loaded, and you have to draw all your plans right at the beginning before you even get a read on whether or not the property, in fact, would be rezoned. And so we suggest, as we always do with new uses, that they go to the Planning Commission, make that presentation. But in this case, given that they got mostly positive feedback from the Planning Commission, in complete disclosure, one of the planning commissioners had some reservations, but in general, the folks there were supportive of the idea. We encouraged them, once the new council was seated, to come here and make the same presentation to you, to see if there was, a good, you're not prejudging it, but, you're giving them guidance in terms of whether you think it's worth their effort to proceed and explore this idea. And so that's the spirit in which they're here tonight.
Sorry, very quickly, right off the bat, PUD, planned unit development. Could you explain that, please?
Yeah, so in essence, it's like a zoning district unto itself, right? And so you create a specific plan for that property, which regulates the use of that property in a very specific way, right? And so if we were to go back to the site plan there, that would be like the little mini zoning map for this piece of property. And so the allowed use would be just what is proposed. You could have others, but in this case, I wouldn't envision that being so. So the proposal is for 14 efficiency units with 14 parking spaces. all those regulations become, in essence, zoning restrictions on the parcel. And in fact, you would record a development agreement at the end of the process, as I recall your particular process. We haven't used it a lot here in Clawson, so it's kind of new to all of us to some degree. But in this case, I think it fits. You know, there's the property, the way the property is used now is actually a non-conforming use, right? There's a house on it, even though it's a B1 district. And so one of the reasons that one of the qualifying criteria for a PUD in your ordinance is that you're redeveloping a non-conforming use. And so it would fit that criteria and the others that are contained in there as well in terms of fostering creativity. But in general, you use the planned unit development approach when nothing else quite fits the proposal. It's a way to accommodate good ideas if in fact you think it's a good idea, without being too rigid in your regulatory approach.
Can I give some input?
Absolutely.
Please.
I'm just tossing this out, and it is not to be construed as favorable, unfavorable. This is a relatively new council, number one. Number two, the PUD is new to this council, and let alone to the city, as you've indicated. And I think it's important that the council get a full import of the significance of a PUD, why it would be appropriate here. I think the rationale behind it should be detailed so they can get the information to then ask questions. I think also the precedent, if any, that might be set for other areas of the community in which this could arise, whether there are other alternatives or restrictions that should be imposed that might be necessary, so that they can ask intelligent questions and then be able to form an opinion that might allow you to proceed forward. It's not avoiding this situation, it's letting them get better informed about it. And I think that that's a realistic request in this situation. So that would be my suggestion to the council, because they are all new, this is a first, and I want them to feel that they're informed.
Yeah, one of the things to keep in mind about the PUD, if you were to look at your ordinance, it doesn't really call it out as a rezoning as such. It's kind of, and PUDs can be handled in one of two ways under state law, either as an overlay or as a zoning district. Your ordinance, the process that it prescribes is a zoning amendment process. And so you're really creating a separate zoning district. And as such, you look to the master plan for guidance, and a PUD is no different than any other rezoning decision. You're looking to the master plan to see if what is proposed as the use pursuant to that planned unit development is consistent with the policy as articulated by the master plan. And this wouldn't be any different. One of the reasons why it's an appropriate vehicle for this use right now, in my opinion, is because they're kind of a little bit ahead of the implementation of the master plan, right? First of all, the master plan hasn't been adopted yet. It's in its comment period still, but it's in pretty concrete form at this point. However, once it is adopted, it will suggest that new zoning districts need to be created that would be consistent with its policy prescriptions, including a mixed-use district, both for West 14 Mile and then potentially for South Main as well. There is sort of a mixed-use district there now, farther south in the BRD 1 district. It's a little cumbersome, but in between downtown and that area is like West 14 Mile, which I think we may have talked about in the last workshop for those who were there. Little bit of a hodgepodge, of things that don't work exactly right in terms of what the policy is that's envisioned for that area, with more of a mixed use.
I want to cut you off, but zoning isn't the only issue that needs to be addressed on this property, if I recall correctly. There's easement issues, and there's a number of things concerning this. So, as city attorney mentioned, I think more detailed information is really needed by this body on all those types of things that it's going to impact.
Yeah, I don't
Just
wanna-
the fact that you say 14 units in, a residential home space, and so then if they have a guest, so now you're looking at the potential of 28 cars, and how are you going to hide them? It's just what comes to my mind.
Right, so I don't want to get too far down the road with this. It really, as they said, it's just an opportunity to see whether it's something you're interested in. And obviously, as you say, Mayor, there's much study and planning that must go into its implementation. But they're trying to get a read of whether that's, like second to best answer is no, as they always say, right? Before they start down that path, they want to find out whether it's in fact something that the council would be interested in.
You only have the one parcel of property there?
Yes, actually, and just a little bit to explain a little bit about the project.
Sorry, do you mind just stepping to the mic?
Okay, no worries. So just a little bit to explain about the project itself. The property in question, 11 Walper, is about 4 blocks south of 14 Mile. There is woodpile, then a vacant property, and then 3 single-family homes, which are marked here. Well, it's not showing up on a TV, but the 3 parcels right there, which are marked B1 or rezoned B1. They're currently single-family home residences that have been rezoned, obviously, with the new master plan coming out. On this property, we had proposed as Urbane and the development arm Infill, which has been operating for about 16 years, is proposing to put 14 efficiency or studio apartments on this parcel. We have operated multiple communities. We're experienced property owners and managers. We've been good corporate citizens along all the pretty much cities of the Woodward corridor. As you saw with the 3D design that we did, we are attempting to use a different material here, as the material in question is repurposed shipping containers, which is a newer building material, and it's actually a pretty exciting material that's being used as well. As you can see, it definitely looks a little bit different than a traditional apartment complex development and the other properties that we own, but we believe that this is part of the future as far as modular design, repurposing of reused materials, also having the ability to be able to construct these quicker and be better corporate citizens. And we've spent a lot of time, and actually this isn't our first PUD. There's a property that we're working on in development in Royal Oak that's going under a similar process. So this is not the first time that we're looking to rezone or work within the city ordinances to do a development. So that being said, the property in itself would meet all applicable building codes, including parking space requirements, and we've even done as much as outside of the city work and the development and digging into the city master plan, but also meeting with some of the local residents. Next door, as some of you may have heard on this council, is Cindy Blanchett, Bob's wife. And so I spent a lot of time with her. Actually, I spent about an hour with her today, going over the process and kind of talking to her about the proposed development, getting her feedback, getting her concerns. For example, she was concerned about some of the sunlight on her garden in the backyard. So we were talking about that and areas for her dogs, and that type of thing. And so, but she's a wonderful person, and actually her review is very positive. And actually, I invited her to call me anytime. She has our contact info to discuss and give positive feedback or any feedback, quite honestly, including concerns throughout this process, as we want to be good corporate citizens and add to the community. What we believe we add with this development is we'd be bringing 14 young professionals to the area with expendable income to live and spend their income in the downtown. We'd also be repurposing the tax basis of this property and increasing the tax basis to the city over a single-family home that's currently miszoned. And so we believe there's a lot of positives through the process to help with this. Obviously, we're aware of the hurdles. Anytime you do this process, nothing ever fits in every zone and every ordinance when it comes to setback requirements and heights. And so we want to work through the process together to kind of make this work with the city. And quite honestly, this is the first shipping container development, but we've spent, Eric and I both, over the last several years, have spent time traveling around the U.S. studying other developments using this building material, including units. There's a 38 in Columbus that was recently developed, including some, especially on the West Coast, and actually in countries outside of the U.S. This is a much more commonly used building material. So it's kind of, again, it is. The wrap-up is kind of that we're a little bit ahead of the building code. We're a little bit ahead of the master plan, but we believe this is truly where it's going. And we think this would be a really cool thing that would give a lot of PR and press to the city of Clawson, quite honestly. So,
Bottom line is, what we found with our existing portfolio is these young professionals, they want to live in a walkable downtown urban kind of community. And so Clawson certainly provides that. You've got some really cool restaurants and bars, and you've just got a really great product here as far as a city, and we want to help bring people here that want to live here and spend their money here, and maybe at some point in time they become, they raise their families here when they get to that point. Mayor, I would like to address your concern about parking. These are studios, so the current code for that is one space per unit, so we meet that. So we're not asking for anything in addition relative to parking.
How, you're going to put this on that one lot?
Yes, sir.
I know the lot. I know Cindy very, very well. I don't see how you could do it. I mean, I like the idea of it, but I don't know how the heck you're going to do it on one single lot that you have there.
Okay. If you don't mind, I'll go ahead. I was going to talk some dimensions with them.
Sure.
So a standard shipping container that would be used in this instance is 40 feet long by 8 feet wide. An average studio apartment would be 2 shipping containers married together for 640 square feet. So a front-to-back envelope of an individual unit is 40 feet. The property in question is 50 feet wide. There is a 8-foot piece of property that is currently owned by the city that we had discussed with the Planning Commission that we would need to acquire at some time to add to give us the extra width of the property that would be required. On the map, as you can see, it's positioned like the compass. So the actual apartments themselves would be in the north end of the property, next to the vacant property, and then the main entrance to the parking lot would be off of Walper. Basically, the dotted line and to the left of that shows the property line. Now, the curved sidewalk was only something that our architect, when we were doing the rendering, put out there as a possibility. If you guys have paid attention to any of the urbane public gardens that have been done, and the sunflowers in front of the property on 13 and Crooks, or the other public gardens that are open not only to the residents but also to the public, we had proposed putting
we went really strong on flowers with our whole marketing program the last 2 years. We built a lavender park. It's in Royal Oak, but it's open to the public. We planted about almost 700 lavender plants, and there are tables and chairs. There's free Wi-Fi there, and it's open to the public. And we've actually built 2 of those. We would like to build, assuming we could work with your parks and whoever that group is, to do something similar to that. If you drive to downtown Detroit and you notice all of the, just before you get to Jefferson, if you've been down there, where they've added the tables, the chairs, and they're just outdoor spaces. Because what we're finding, young people today, they're using what they call the third space. So they sleep where they live, but they want to go out and have common spaces, and they want to go to the coffee shops and the bakeries and all the things that go with that.
Okay.
try to incorporate
See,
some.
one question. From the fence to the sidewalk, how much room is there?
Currently from Valerie Baumgarten's or the property 11 Walper to this city street is currently 8 feet additional. So it'd be a front to back envelope of 58 feet.
Okay.
Yep. And actually, I'll just go ahead and mention this now because one of the questions that got brought up in the planning meeting was the concern of a parking lot on Main Street. There is, and I'd mentioned it to Cindy earlier today, that there are plans, or at least we've done design mock-ups of putting a secondary unit south to the north one and acquiring 21 Walper, which would be Cindy's residence at a future date at her choosing, if we were allowed to, and then take the parking off Main and put it behind it so that there would then be a barrier between the residential district and the business district, if you can envision that. I don't think it got added in this, but we have tried to plan ahead for the future to handle any issues that could arise. So,
Well, I don't know that we can give you any answers today, but certainly a follow-up report from the planner regarding that rezoning and some more particulars be given to council so that we can, go from there.
Yeah,
Anybody
I
else
do
have any
have
questions?
so yeah, we'd love to answer any
I
questions
was
you
going to say, I
guys
probably
have.
have a list of questions here that
Absolutely.
might. Does that surprise anybody?
I was trying to help them out.
So you've already acquired this property. If you don't get approval for this, or you don't get the sense that it's going to be worth your investment, you just resell the property then at that point?
So it's kind of a touchy issue. There are other developers in the city that are interested in that parcel, especially ones that own adjoining properties. I would prefer that we retain ownership of it. It is currently as a single-family parcel. I would rather not sell it, but quite honestly, would rather not keep it as a single-family rental. Taxes go up in a business district. It's not positioned for best and highest use as far as the parcel goes.
We're developers. We're going to do something with it.
Okay.
Yeah, we would like to do something with it. Timeline isn't set. But quite honestly, this is the only parcel that we currently own in the city of Clawson, and that the economics make sense, that you can actually acquire a piece of land because there is a land cost per unit that makes it economically viable to develop a project. And so, and this one happened to work. We've tried in several other areas. We've run up to challenges where people think their piece of empty land is worth $1 million, and it just completely blows any economics out of the water. And so, we believe this has a real viability, and I think the benefits outweigh the hurdles that we would have in this process. And so that's why we're so bullish on bringing this project to the city of Clawson. So,
Appreciate that.
yeah.
I'm talking about building materials used. I don't know if there's any ordinance or if it's addressed in the master plan anywhere. And like you said, you're kind of ahead of the curve on that. I can't say that I have the master plan memorized, but does it address any kind of building materials like this?
No, it wouldn't get into that level of detail. Again, you're kind of setting within the parameters of the uses and the policies that are indicated. You're kind of setting your own set of rules for this parcel through the PUD process, if that's the process they choose to go.
I mean, we would like it to be consistent, somewhat, but. I think the DDA in their master plan, they call out, I think, wood, stone, and brick as building materials that would be, ideal for the DDA. Is this fall into the DDA?
No,
typically?
it's not, and
it's farther. Okay, it's south
yeah,
of
it
the
doesn't. Those development standards that are contained in like the city center district, you're right. They prescribe particular materials through the zoning of that district.
But this would be
you could prescribe materials through
Sure.
this process as well. Similarly, by developing a set of regulations for this PUD.
We're writing our own set of rules for this property.
Pretty much.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
The developers also proposed something that meets our sustainability requirement. They were talking about using a gray water system. If you're familiar with the property, they have a drainage ditch and some drainage issues in that area, that they'd be purchasing that property, that extra 8 feet from us, and redeveloping that and using a gray water system on the building itself.
Yeah, what we're referring to there is we're pretty in tune to what we think that the market is, and what we're finding is people are really into recyclable things and reclaimed water, and storm water runoff is a big issue in any city. And we're doing a similar project in Royal Oak where we're actually capturing that water, and we're turning that back over in that particular area to the folks who water all the city plants. So it ends up being a kind of a really cool marketing thing for us. It also seems to be the right thing to do, and we would want to do something similar here as well. So.
Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to point out that would probably take the form of underground detention, and then they could recycle the water from there. It's not like there's going to be a lagoon of gray water.
Yeah, it's more than how we manage that water.
And so, excuse me, in the studio, you wouldn't expect more than one resident per unit. Is that something you would regulate by your rules?
So the state, that's regulated by state laws.
Okay, thank you.
It's 2 heads per bed is really how that goes. I can speak a little bit about a third to half of our portfolio are small spaces. We have some studios as small as 340 square feet. These would be closer to a total of 560 square feet. But we're actually going to make the living area around 400, and we want to give a really big outdoor plaza deck area. So long-winded answer is there could be 2 people, but typically in a small space it ends up being a single person.
Yeah, that's what I would expect, but I wasn't. I mean, I think the biggest challenge.
And they eat out a lot. We've noticed that in some cases we'll go to do the unit turns in year 3, and the oven has never been. They don't make turkey at home.
They don't. I think one of the biggest concerns that you'll probably face here is parking, frankly, and I'm beginning to get the sense that I think our parking regulations might be a little bit off in some areas, but this isn't the first time I've addressed this, but. Because in Clawson, you cannot park anywhere, really, except on private property from 2 a.m. to 6 a.m. And, I mean, without some exceptions from the police or otherwise. So I think that's probably going to be our primary concern with a property like this.
And that's a narrow road. I mean, that Walper is not a wide road where people end up with all that additional
And so, I mean,
parking in other places.
Yeah, I mean, if you have even one unit with 2 residents with vehicles, what happens there? If anybody decides to have an overnight guest.
Not to be argumentative
No,
or
I
defensive,
appreciate
by
that,
the
yeah.
way, but your current zoning only calls for 1 space per. Now,
Most cities do.
yeah, most cities do.
Sure.
You do have an interesting. Typically, we do not have all of those parallel parking spots right in front, so you do have a lot of parallel parking along. Yeah.
And actually, if I may add a comment, and actually, this is why I love Cindy. It's really great to have her and have this discussion with her. Earlier today, she actually brought up the question to me of there was some discussion of using a traditional downtown mixed-use development with retail along the first level and then apartments above. And she actually brought up the point that currently people already, because there are businesses directly south of this property that tend to park on Walper as overflow parking, and actually adding additional retail to the area would then not only increase the parking space requirements, but also would increase overflow parking on the side streets and that type of thing, which would be an issue. And that's another reason. We are in the apartment business, but that's why we were pushing for strictly a multifamily development versus a traditional mixed use that is seen in a main thoroughway. So
Yeah. I don't know if you've put any thought into this. This is way maybe premature, but we do have some.
We think about this stuff all the time.
This might not
So
be
yeah, we do.
I mean, how do you prevent people from parking there who aren't residents? I mean, I could see
We
that
end up
becoming
being
a
a parking
problem.
police, to
Yeah.
be honest with you.
Yeah.
In a situation like this, there would be a sign, there would be assigned
Assigned,
spaces
yeah.
and,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. I mean, those are my initial concerns.
Sure.
I can imagine that I'll probably have some others. I have. I'm not gonna lie. I have some reservations, but I'm trying to be as objective as possible about it. The other thing is that this will be a 3-story building. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
3 stories, which the current zoning allows
Yes.
for 2.5 stories, but we will be under 30 feet, which the current zoning allows for 30 feet.
Okay.
So we're not going higher. We just want to add that
6
third.
inches.
Yeah.
I really like your idea, but I'm also thinking of the house behind it, Cindy's house, and I would say if she's for it, and you've got that extra room for parking, that would make life a lot easier.
Absolutely.
So, but I think it's a great idea. Great.
Okay, anyone else?
Any other questions?
Yeah. What's next?
I just have a question.
Then-
Do you own the property on Crooks that has used shipping containers for their pool area? Do you know what I'm talking about?
The garden, I believe, garden canopies.
There's like a pool behind it.
Oh, yeah, no, that's ours.
Is it
Yeah.
yours?
Uh-huh.
So same materials, but
Pardon
not
me?
painted neat, beautiful colors?
So, we intend to build somewhere between 300 and 500 units of apartments out of shipping containers. One reason we like this particular property is it's small, so it gives us a chance to kind of a learning curve. Not that we're going to learn things on it, but you just do learn. And so that specific property on Crooks, those are just cabanas that overlook a garden. And so we just wanted to practice in a really small area with that.
But it is the same material. You'd be using similar materials.
Well, not really. Those are just 2 containers.
Right, but
They
you're
have
talking
no
about
skin
developing
on them.
on a, I mean, of course,
Yeah.
you'd have to add other structure around
Yeah.
the containers, but the
Yeah.
containers are the materials you
That's right.
intend on using.
Those are only 20-foot containers though. These would be 40s.
Yep. Yeah. Believe it or not, it's kind of interesting. This is going to get kind of nerdy, but so the average shipping container that is 8 foot wide, 40 feet long, they're actually called hide boxes or high tops, and they're actually 9.5 feet tall. So these residents would actually have 9-foot ceilings in them, which also help with the feel of the larger space. When you build out something like this, not only do you have your initial structure, which is a used shipping container, but then there's closed cell foam, drywall, proper installation, proper electrical, and all the MEPs that are used in a traditional that meet state building codes. And so actually we've already sourced suppliers and worked with companies that are actually writing the building codes for the various states right now that are being adopted for using this type of material. So
Are they lead designs?
It's interesting you would say that. We are certainly to get a LEED certified, and we've done that. It's
Laborious.
yeah. There's a whole lot of pieces and parts to it. We want to be as green as we can because we're really aiming at a minimalist kind of lifestyle user here. So we would have a lot of things in that that are within the LEED requirements, but they would not. It wouldn't be a LEED certified building.
So minimalist, is it rude for me to ask you what your rent would be? Just curious.
Happy to talk about that. So again, we think Clawson is just this sleepy little place, but we're pretty confident we would get 225 to 250 a square foot. So they're going to be $1,100 to $1,200.
Yeah, the high end. Yep.
That's what we think.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you very much for your
Thank
time
you.
and coming in.
Yeah, thank you.
So what? I'm sorry. What would be our?
You may want to
Well,
refer
yeah.
to administration for
Okay.
the report through the planner. I think in that report, when it comes back to you, you also get ideas about what you think might be appropriate for your consideration in the development agreement
So we,
on this site as well.
administration should get us a follow-up report
Okay,
and looking at the PUD and some of those other details so that we can educate ourselves and make a better decision.
okay.
Thank
Will
you.
do. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.
We're only on number 9. This is the consideration of establishing our public hearing to solicit comments on the possible recommendations of preliminary denials or pre-approvals of the following Class C licensed businesses. We do this early so that it gives the opportunity of the police department, the building department, the treasurer, water department, and fire marshal to be able to make inspections and give a recommendation to city council before the deadline.
Okay. Here we go. Your Honor, I move a public hearing on the possible recommendations of a preliminary denial or pre-approval of the following Class C licensed businesses. Black Lotus, Clawson KSC, Clawson Fraternal Order of Eagles, Clawson Grill, Clawson Steakhouse, Clawson Woodpile Barbecue Shack, Da Nang, Devente, The Hideout, Lim's Palace, Mojave Cantina, Montage Grill, Moose Winooski's, Old Detroit Burger Bar, Asaka Japanese Steakhouse, Renshaw Tavern on the Main, Three Cats Cafe. Be held prior to the regular city council meeting on Wednesday, January 3rd, 2018, beginning at whatever time we want.
It's generally been
You're making a motion.
6, isn't it?
Generally.
6:30.
Yeah.
It's whatever you guys.
Yeah,
would
6:30.
like. It's whatever your motion states.
Second.
Yeah, I'm done.
Roll call, please.
Sorry. Councilmember Milan?
Yes.
Councilmember Moffett?
Yes.
Councilmember Olbrich?
Yes.
Mayor Woolley?
Yes.
And Councilmember Ayers?
Yes.
The next item on the agenda is consideration of approval request by the Clawson Goodfellows to conduct their annual paper sale. The Clawson Goodfellows are asking to conduct their annual sale on Friday, December 1st and Saturday, December 2nd, throughout most of the major intersections in the city. The Goodfellows are comprised of local Clawson firefighters and many civic-minded residents. And just, if any of you don't know, Clawson's Goodfellows' mission is that no child is without a Christmas. In addition to doing their donation drive, they will be collecting unwrapped toys here at City Hall. And you could contact the Goodfellows at 248-407-5522 or email clawsongoodfellows@gmail.com to help them out for this worthy cause.
Mayor, I move the request by the Clawson Goodfellows to conduct their annual paper sale on Friday, December 1st, 2017, and Saturday, December 2nd, 2017, from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. throughout most of the major intersections in the city of Clawson be approved.
Support.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Moffett?
Yes.
Councilmember Olbrich?
Yes.
Mayor Woolley?
Yes.
Councilmember Ayers?
Yes.
Councilmember Milan?
Yes.
And the motion carries. So we'll see them on the 1st and the 2nd. The next item is considering approval of the request of the American Cancer Society to hold their fall color bash at the Clawson City Hall from September 14th to September 15th.
Your Honor, I move the request by the American Cancer Society to hold their fall color bash at the Clawson City Park from September 14th, 2018 to September 15th, 2018 be approved.
Support.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Olbrich?
Yes.
Mayor Woolley?
Yes.
Councilmember Ayers?
Yes.
Councilmember Milan?
Yes.
Councilmember Moffett?
Yes.
And that request has been granted. On to paying the bills.
Madam Mayor, let's pay the bills.
Support.
Roll call, please.
Mayor Woolley?
Yes.
Councilmember Ayers?
Yes.
Councilmember Milan?
Yes.
Councilmember Moffett?
Yes.
Councilmember Olberg?
Yes.
Looks like everybody's getting paid. And next, the city attorney's report.
Reports, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. City manager's report.
I did have 3 items, Madam Mayor. First of all, I want to mention, and I neglected to do this at the organizational meeting, Jim Horton wanted to pass along his absence was due to attendance of a funeral. I meant to mention that. He congratulated the new council and the new mayor, said he certainly didn't want the impression that it was sour grapes was why he wasn't here. Jim served the community well, said some very nice things, and I think he meant every word of it about the new council. He's going to be fully involved, especially the Goodfellows. You'll see him at 14 in Maine with the boot selling those papers, and I think they have an internal competition with the firefighters and people collecting is how much they can get. So I know he always picks a prime spot. But I did want to mention that he was at a funeral. There's a reason he wasn't here, and I did tell him I would mention that, and I neglected to do so last Monday, but I wanted to make sure everyone knew that Jim wishes his best to this new council. Another item, the leaf pickup, we did get quite a few calls the last couple of days. We will be extending leaf pickup. The request of the DPW is hopefully, there's still a lot of leaves in the trees, I know that. But hopefully, if they fall, anything that you have that you want picked up, please put out in the street on Sunday, preferably later in the day on Sunday. They're going to try and do the entire city on Monday. Wednesday and Thursday, normal pickup, they'll do tomorrow to try and get through the entire 2 days since we're not here on Thursday. And then, like I say, we'll play by weather and amount of leaves next week. They may go past Monday. My guess is they probably will. But we're trying to encourage everyone to get the leaves out Sunday evening so that they can get through the entire city on Monday with what's out there. And then we'll play beyond that by ear. But it has been a late leaf drop this year with the rain and the weather getting cold. They're coming down in a hurry, and we'll play that again by the amount of leaves that fall and when, and then by weather. And the reason we had some people ask why don't we extend it further is we have to prepare for snow, and a lot of the trucks that we use for leaf pickup we have to convert for snow plowing, and that's the main reason that we have a cutoff date and don't extend too far. But again, we'll play that by the amount of leaves and the weather. And the other thing I wanted to mention, we had a meeting with Mr. Jerry Mancour and Al Summers last week. Matt Hodges and I met with them. And I don't know if you've seen it yet, but if you haven't, please look at the hard work and effort they put in here at City Hall on the north end of the community room. They're calling the Donald Mancour Memorial. They're still taking names. They filled the first 3 boards. A lot of work, a lot of effort. Al actually checks all the names that they get. And what they're looking for is people connected to Clawson who have passed away that served in the military service. They have the 3 panels full now, and I think they're pretty close to filling at least another 3. The issue they're having now, this has all come out of their pockets. Every bit of dollar they spent, and they didn't spare expense. They spent a lot of money on this. So there's going to likely be some type of funding effort. We were trying to avoid GoFundMe because they collect a percentage of the proceeds, but whatever we need to do to help them raise money, he said on average it costs them about $50 per name, and he's already invested in 200 and some names I think they have. So he's put a lot of his own money, but again, it's for him. He wanted to do this in memory of the veterans that have gone on. They are planning, working on, and we'll work with them on an extension of the memorial service that's already done at Memorial Park at the library. They want to extend an invitation at the end of that service for people to come over here and take a look. Their idea is to get some form of computer, iPad kiosk with database information on each of the names, connect pictures if they can. So we're working on some form of database to work with them on. But I commend them. They put in a lot of work on this, a lot of their own time and money. It's taken them several years to put this together, but we were happy to get it. The DPW did a great job getting it on that wall. We'll have some lighting on it eventually, and eventually we will have a computer which connects the names. They gave us large sheets with all the names so far. They continue to collect. They said we want it to be here long after we're gone. They actually made it to stand up to outdoor conditions. So that thing should be around 100 years. But like I said, we'll get more information out there, but they are going to be looking for some funding to help support the balance. Again, they felt bad about asking for $50 now for additional names because they didn't before. But we may just open something up for people to donate. It's such a great cause. And, as I told them, it's a shame how this country treats veterans. I do hope the president keeps that promise to the people and looks after our veterans. And it is something, again, that a lot of pride, but at the same time, I told them we would do what we could to try and help them get funding to complete that project. And it is. It's beautiful. It's a great thing for anyone here associated with Clawson who had someone pass away, and that's what they're doing. They're getting phone calls of people that are still alive, but they're actually doing this as a memorial, and are putting a lot of work into it. So, but you can still, we have it on our website. We still have information. We have forms that they can fill out if they have a family member, a relative, or know of someone. And Al does all of the legwork connecting to make sure that they get the information correct. So I did want to mention that. We'll have more information and hope to raise additional funding for them. That's all I had.
Any unfinished business? Okay, on to new business. I wanted to remind everybody that the library is going to be closed this week, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday for the holiday. This Saturday is Small Business Saturday, and make sure that you support our local businesses throughout town. So when you're doing your Black Friday shopping, save a little cash for our local establishments. Clawson's Christmas tree lighting is this Wednesday, or next Wednesday, November 29th at 6:30 at the library. Get ready for some caroling that will be led by the Optimist Group and Santa's arrival. And afterwards, refreshments will be served here at City Hall, and Santa will be available for all the kids to hear all their wishes. Our next City Council meeting is going to be at 7. We're going to continue the Coffee with Council at least through the end of the year. Clawson High School Musical is December 7th at the high school auditorium. I'm not sure on the time on that, but they always put in a lot of hard work. And December 9th is our 11 o'clock lunch with Santa, sponsored by the Clawson Women's Club. They've been doing that for many years, but remember, you need to purchase your tickets ahead of time, and the cost is $6. And I guess now I open the floor to public discussion. Public discussion. Say your name and your address, please.
Good evening. Welcome, all new council members and the mayor. My name is Barton Morris. I'm a lawyer that works in 520 North Main Street in Royal Oak. And I was interested in knowing whether the council would like to hear a presentation from myself regarding medical marijuana facilities and the educational benefits of potentially having one or many in the community here.
I think right now we're still looking at our ordinances and determining what we're going to do based on some of the laws that I know are coming down the pipe.
Yeah, the message really has been, and this is to everyone that's called us, the regulations are still in the process of work, and it's anticipated now they won't be done until March. So I've advised the council, just wait until the regulations are done, and then you have a better understanding of what the impact is going to be. I have told them that on grow facilities that if they're ever allowed, they are tax exempt, and so the city would be losing money on those for property taxes. So there are those issues that arise that are in the tax code that, the big players got together and made those amendments. And so we want to be sure that if they do consider any licensing, they know fully the ramifications.
Okay, thank you. I do want to note that the regulations that you're referring to, the emergency regulations will be out by the end of this month, and the state will begin accepting applications by the 15th. And so the Department of Licensing and Regulatory Affairs has already been issuing advisory opinions and providing regulatory structure to the program thus far. And only thing I was recommending was just a presentation to advise you of just to educate you about the facilities. And so certainly wouldn't call for any type of action. Just interested in providing that education, as I've done with dozens of municipalities throughout the entire state.
I think at this time that we're just looking for the city council for this particular issue. But thank you very
Sure, I
much for your
understand.
time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Anyone else for public discussion? Public discussion is now closed.
Madam Mayor, I move the city council move into closed session for discussion on attorney-client communications.
Support.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Ayers?
Yes.
Councilmember Milan?
Yes.
Councilmember Moffett?
Yes.
Councilmember Albrecht?
Yes.
Mayor Woolley?
Yes. And what happens now is we'll go into closed sessions. There's very specific times that we can do this and not include the public, and it's specific to communications from the city attorney. So we will, after we're done, come back in and adjourn the meeting officially. So thank you very much for your time.